What's up, brothers and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. Now I have this book written by brothers called Black Indians of the Appalachia: Colonization to the Civil War by Rufus Jimerson. Now there's some things I disagree with this dude on, man. But I wanted to highlight that most people who really study history know that most black people are already here. Most of our ancestors are already here. This is not even up for debate anymore. It really isn't. All right. I'm gonna read this right here if I can focus it. Okay, get a little focus. Two of the tribes, the Pequots and the Mohegans, were originally one Algonquin tribe that migrated down one of the major North Appalachian waterways, the Hudson River Valley. During the early 17th century, Mohegans broke away from the Pequots over an intertribal leadership conflict. Prior to the schism, the Pequots had an estimated membership of 6,000 persons. After the smallpox epidemic in Pequot War, the Pequots numbers less than 1,500. Most of the males were executed or sold as slaves to Indian tribes that allied with the English. The women and children were sold to West Indies planters and settlers. The largest exportation of Pequots, Mohegans, Wampanoag, and other New England tribes came about as a result of King Philip's War in 1676. All right. Mystic Massacre and King Philip's War. On the shores of the Mystic River in Connecticut, about 700 Pequots were killed. Surviving women and children appeared as slaves in St. David, Bermuda by 1640. Small handfuls of remaining prisoners were parceled out to allied tribes. The Mystic Massacre, which extinguished the tribe in New England, will become a model. Let me get a clear focus. Model for the removal of all the remaining tribes between the northern Appalachian Mountains and coast. Okay, you can see it clear. King Philip's War served as an opportunity to fully utilize the model of Indian removal that was derived from the Pequot War. King Philip was the grand schism of the Wampanoag Confederacy. The Wampanoags, who were the guests of the Pilgrims at the Thanksgiving, were ordered to disarm and submit to the authority of the crown. After his wife and son were captured and sold into slavery in the West Indies, Metacomet, called King Philip, wiped out 13 settlements and killed 600 newcomers. The Massachusetts government retaliated by offering a bounty of 20 shillings for every Indian scalp and 40 shillings for every woman and child taken for sale on the auction block. King Philip was captured and executed. His head was displayed at the top of a standing pole as a warning to those who resist the newcomers' authority. Peaceful Indians such as the Dartmouth College and Dover, Delaware, were also captured and sold into slavery along with those in the warring Wampanoag Confederacy. The war left no full-blooded Indian free in New England. By 1676, the Pilgrims and the English authorities destroyed the former Indian Wampanoag guest at the first Thanksgiving along with neighboring tribes. All right, and here is King Philip and the Indians. As you see, those are Negroes. I got a larger picture of this. Now I want to show you this because you know it's the year 1776. All right, that's much later than 1619. So they was telling you they were still capturing Aboriginal black people here, Indians, and making them into slaves. All right, this had nothing to do with no goddamn Africa. All right, this has nothing to do with no damn Africa. This is the Aboriginal blacks here. Now he mentions black and red and all that jazz, but no. You can obviously tell these are Aboriginal Negroes here with the feather on their head, just like you see of a Pocahontas father with the feather on his head and his attire that he's wearing, which is in the Virginia Historical Society Museum. I also showed you Appalachia, like I said, the Appalachies, the Tennessee, Ofusky. These names sound similar because these, like I said, these are the same damn people. These are the same Aboriginal black people who broke off into different tribes, who mixed in with other black people. So these weren't no African, like I said, these weren't African slaves. And so I just showed you the King Philip's War, and I showed you the image of the black people here. And the red, I showed you how 16 is talking about 1676, the Pilgrims and the English authority destroyed the former Indian Wampanoag guest at his first Thanksgiving long. This is after 1619, when supposed these African slaves came here. Man, like I said before, the indigenous people here in America, the original slaves, were black Indians. They were black Indians. They weren't no Africans. These are Aboriginal black Indians. These were our ancestors. And the reason I'm saying this, man, because there's so many Negroes who think you have a form of self-hate when you present this information. When you present information, I guess it's new to them because they weren't taught this in schools, that most black people are descendants of the blacks who are already here and black Europeans. But you can't teach Negroes anything who have been indoctrinated and just filled with self-hate, but they want to talk about other people who are filled with hate, but when it's them filled with self-hate. I wanted to show that because it's in his book written by Rufus Jimerson, but he mentions some black and red Indians. No. The Aboriginal people here are black now. In his other part, he talks about, I want to also show it if I can, because I didn't really select it to read out, but here he goes right here in this part. Okay, if I can get it clearer. African Eastern Woodland Indian contact and solidarity preceded the so-called Spanish discovery and subsequent conquest. Using the North Equatorial Current, Western African traders and explorers navigated to the Appalachian coastal plains and Caribbean islands. These pre-Columbian Africans brought the knowledge and use of gold and other precious ore for ornaments and weapons. Pyramids, reed boats, pictographic linguistic techniques modeled after East African sources stand as evidence of the pre-Columbian African presence that established the Olmec civilization in Central America, among others, including Southeastern Indians, Native American, ancient cultures, including the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca civilizations, were directly or indirectly of African origin. Now, and he shows a big picture of Olmec. Now, I want to say this, man. We got to get out of nonsense of thinking that black people just came from Africa and then start civilizing other people. Black people all over this planet. We had to get out of that type of thinking. Black people were building all over this planet. They weren't just in one location. All right. Yes, the Maya, the Egyptians, the Aztecs, Malini Moors, Inca/Dinka, Malinians were Negroes. These were Negroes. And I talked about the Maya before. I talked about the Aztecs. How Montezuma looked like a freaking Zulu. He said, and then you look at those architectural structures. A lot of that stuff you see at all the state capitol buildings throughout this country, where they have that little dome shape and that little needle on top of it. You've seen that with the Aztec structures. All right, as you know, I always say the Inca/Dinka, because that's what they were. All right, so he talks about how, quote, these people were African, mainly coming from Africa, but not understanding that a lot of the black people here were leaving here and going to Africa. I always mention how Maya was a great spiritual teacher coming from the other side of the sea, going over to Egypt to take part in some spiritual, high level ceremony or practice. So there was always a cross pollination of the various different cultures and the movement of black people globally. So we have to understand it. So my main emphasis is this, is that so-called black people are not of African slaves. And we got, like I always say this, we got to stop this, man. Because this is really, when you constantly hear these Negroes like this Sarah Garvey idiot, who really need to stay out of our business, try to tell us who we are, when many of us have done the research, man, it's getting to be a headache. But when, like I said, when you've been indoctrinated through all these schools, when you attend your little Ivy League schools or your little Cambridge or Oxford universities, you've been indoctrinated with this big time lie, saying that all black people just come out of Africa. And then when you say something different from that, you supposedly teaching self-hate, which is not. All black people do not come from one location. When you look at these black people in these very different locations, even in the black people in the Pacific Islands, they all do not look the same. We all do not look the same. There's certain type of physical structure that we may differ amongst each other. Some of us are a little bit closer than others, but we differ a lot in certain aspects with features. You got to pick up on some of that, man. And I'm really trying to disseminate this information because it's really needed. When I showed you a picture of Metacomet, that's unquestionably a Negro wearing feathers, man. And those are northeastern Negroes. This weren't necessarily the deep south. These are northeastern Negroes, man. They were not African slaves. So we got to get out of that mess thinking that we were just brought over here on the slave ship. We've been here. This is our land. So we got to start thinking that way. Because when you continue to just call yourself African, you give people to crack that door open and to hijack your identity. And by us being Aboriginal to America, but we keep saying we African, we're allowing people to hijack our identity. And before I end this video, most black people don't call themselves no damn Native American. You see, these Negroes need to stop that. They keep regurgitating lying information. Most black people call themselves autochthonous, Aboriginal, or by their nation. They do not call themselves Native American. Native Americans are basically pale Asiatics, white folks who mixed in with some Negroes. That's what they are. Those are your $5 Indians. All right, so our people do not identify themselves as no Native American. So stop throwing that out there. And a lot of them Pan-Africans, they throwing stuff out there so that hopefully they will stick. And they say a lot of ignorant things, man, and it's really sad. It's a sad state at what they're doing because they know they're losing grip in the black community. And most people don't want to hear that stuff. And when you hear these morons like Sarah Garvey, who want to continuously make little subtle swiping attacks at Aboriginal black Americans, he's showing his full ignorance of us as a people. But he really doesn't know black Americans. Hell, some of us don't know our true history, but once we really know and understand our true history and realize that we are the original Indians, and that's our ancestry, we need to reclaim our ancestry and take our ancestry back. That's not no self-hate of being so-called African. That's just self-love and knowing who we truly are. It's not self-hate. It's big-time self-love. And this is why it's very important to study this information, because it's out there. A lot of these fools know who we really are. They know that we didn't come from no Africans, no damn slaves. Most of our people are already here. And I showed you the various different Indians in Florida who were black. I showed you the ones in Georgia before who were black. I showed you ones in the Midwest who were black. In the Northeast who were black. And out West who were black. And I showed you the building structures out in the Southwest built by the Millennium blacks, who even had a tribe known as the Mandan tribe in the freaking Americas. And all these other tribes who linked to the Millennians, a la Malinche, Tennessee, Saniki. Malinki. This is so funny, man. This stuff is literally in your face, man. It really is. There's too much documentation out here. Period. The original people here were black. But all these Pan-Africans do that fall in that DNA stuff. The original people here were black. But I knew they was going to use DNA during the 90s to try to explain away ancient Egypt being a black civilization. That's what these fools were trying to do. They're going to try to explain that away. But only ignorant Negroes will go along with this lie. With that lie. Alright, brothers and sisters. So this is my quick video I wanted to make talking about Metacomet. Alright, so this is our history. Reclaim our true history. Take back our full history. And stop allowing outsiders, even some of them outsiders who physically look close to us, to try to write a narrative or tell us who we really are. We need to really take back who we really are and our title of who we really are. We gotta stop allowing others outside of our lineage group. And not all foreign blacks are sellouts, man. But there's just too many who run their mouth with cooning. But we gotta stop allowing people who do not have our best interest speaking in our history, speaking in our culture. Even if they do look closely like us, they're not us. Alright? They're traitors, and they continue to show themselves as traitors. Put in the research, brothers and sisters. The information is there. I've done the research myself because, like I said, I have an opening. I mentioned before how my father was the first black quarterback at a predominantly white high school. First black quarterback and captain. And a captain of the basketball team at a predominantly white high school. He served in the Air Force. Alright? He went to college, and when he went to an HBCU, and got his master's and everything. And who was in my life? That's another lie. My father was married to my mother until he passed. Alright? He served in the military with honors. Left with honors. Alright, he was, like I said, he was in the Air Force. I had a great-grandfather who was a veterinarian. I had an aunt who was an educator. I have a sister who has a PhD in education. I have another sister who's a medical doctor, a brother with an engineering degree. So I don't come from no. I had another brother who had an accounting degree. So I didn't come from no street Negro stuff, man. But even if you can't always count intelligence with a degree. But I come from the so-called educational background, and I want brothers and sisters to really put in the work. Now I do my research different. I like to get the full book and just read it. That's how I do it. I just pile up on that. That's not for everyone, all right? But I'm just letting you know to put in the research. The information's there. The history's there. Do not allow these charlatan Negroes telling you that you're a slave from Africa like Umar Johnson. He's very insulting, the things he say. Extremely insulting. But that lets you know, or let me know, that he really don't know what the hell he's talking about when it comes to our history. Like I showed you before. I showed you the images. Look, I mentioned about the Dover Indians. You have to do it. Dover, Maryland. Dartmouth Indians. Dartmouth College. These bastards, man. I told you they stole the land of the black Indians and used black slaves to build those Ivy League institutions. So those schools owe a hell of a lot to our ancestors. But if we do not know who we really are and keep saying that we're African and come from places, claiming a place 1,000 miles away instead of our Aboriginal land that we're walking on right now, we will continue to be lost in space with our mentality. So we gotta get out of being lost in space and come back and landing back on ground, Houston, please. We need to be back, have our feet on ground, locked to the ground, and knowing who we truly are and our true history. Take pride in who you are. Love who you are. Stop allowing others to dictate who you are or to define who you are. Alright, brothers and sisters, man. It's your brother G World. I'm finished with today's video. _D. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. I'm out here.